A lot of fans expect Alabama to be what Alabama was, right? With Nick Saban. You want them to be, this superstar talented team that never could lose and this and that. Hey, what's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to TCAM Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Tracewell, back for another week, back to talk more about college football. We got NFL football to talk about. MLS playoffs is starting. The World Series is here. Going to be a little bit longer episode today. Have a lot to dive into. But the first thing we're going to talk about is college football. Now, Week 8 was electric. West Virginia losing to Kansas State. We'll get into that later. Don't need to talk about that right now. We started out the week on a banger. BYU played Oklahoma State. BYU sneaks by in a thriller 38-35. BYU looking like the best team in the Big 12. Making a name for themselves now. Making a bunch of dogs, these guys. They're making a name for themselves. Keep fighting. BYU is going to be facing UCF this coming week. They're undefeated. UCF is 3-4. UCF has struggled more than I thought they would throughout this season. I thought it'd be a little better season for them, but Iowa State, no joke. They gave Iowa State all their money's worth. 38-35 final ending for UCF. They couldn't pull it out. Then UCF lost Cincinnati and Florida, so they're coming off four against Colorado too. They're coming off 4 straight losses right now. So UCF just going to have to see if they can bounce back versus BYU, and BYU is nobody to sleep on since they are the number 11 team in the country. We had that banger go on the Friday night, start us out the weekend. We had Miami and Louisville. Thriller Cam Ward continues to lead his team to victories, continues to dominate for Miami. The U look good this year. 52-45 score against Louisville. And Louisville, nobody to sleep on now. I mean, Louisville, why they don't have the best record, their offense produces now. They played great against Notre Dame, and they lost. They played good against SMU, and they lost. They played good against Virginia and won, and they played good against Miami and lost. Like, most of their losses are within 1 score. So, either way, Louisville has put in a fight, just cannot finish out when it matters most. So, we had that one banger on Saturday. We had Alabama and Tennessee. Rocky Top, the Vols, get it done against Alabama. For Alabama, here's what the problem is. A lot of fans expect Alabama to be what Alabama was, right, with Nick Saban. You want them to be, this superstar talented team that never could lose and this and that. But when you take out, there's a reason Nick Saban's the greatest coach of all time. There's a reason Nick Saban is the greatest coach of all time. He's the greatest coach of all time because guess what? He won the championships. Winning always mattered. Discipline mattered. These kids today on most programs with the NIL do whatever they want, right? Ain't nobody telling them what to do. AJ McCarron said it best, and he was on a sports show this week. AJ McCarron, old quarterback from Alabama, won national championship. He said everybody cares about TikTok these days in football. Nobody cares about the discipline and the Nick Saban error. What does that mean, right? So here's what I'm taking into example. Culture has probably changed at Alabama. There's no doubt about it. That, we got to be 15 minutes early to everything to, we don't have any fun. It's all about winning, right? We have fun after we win, when we win the big games, right? Now it's probably, coach, music, fun, have all this fun, right? Great time. We're making money. We're one of the best teams in the country, right? People are scared of us. And we come off a high beating Georgia. And Georgia looked like the best football team in the country, to now we lost to Vandy, which Vandy got underneath their skin, right? Vandy, any football team that pretty much holds the ball for 42 minutes is going to win. It should win a football game, but Alabama made mistakes in that game. Alabama should have lost South Carolina. South Carolina played better than they did. And then Tennessee took advantage of them. And honestly, I haven't been impressed with Jalen Milroe the past couple weeks. I haven't been impressed with him since he played Georgia, so Alabama, new culture, new system, new coach. Things are going to take time. I'm not saying that, it won't get better. It's going to get better. But we have to let it progress, right? You can't say Kalen DeBoer doesn't know how to coach football. He took Washington national championship last year. He does know how to coach a football team. It's just a different style than what Alabama fans are used to. This is what happens, coaching change. You have the greatest coach of all time, and then now he leaves. And really, Alabama's had the two greatest coaches of all time. So really, this is a new change for everybody now in this program. So Alabama 5-2 right now. They are going to be facing Missouri this week. Missouri, I tell you what, they've been up. They can beat Missouri. Missouri can surprise people. Missouri came, flying in last weekend to beat Auburn, and they shouldn't have been that close. But Missouri and Alabama is going to be a tight game. It's going to be a tight game, I think. But Alabama ranked number 15 in the country. I don't expect them to really make much more noise this year. I don't. It's a new system, new gig for them. But Roll Tide roll. I'll always be cheering them on. But disappointing loss against Tennessee, 24-17. Then we had Illinois and Michigan. What do people expect from Michigan? Everybody expects Michigan to be like this crazy good team. And yes, they do have a good defense, so we're not going to sleep on it. But the defense can only hold so long if the offense can't get anything done. And Michigan's offense isn't getting anything done for them. Now, Illinois, they didn't throw the ball very much. Their offense wasn't incredible. They didn't play offensively incredible against Michigan. I mean, Michigan outplayed them in the past. They outplayed Michigan in the run, but they also caused 2 fumbles. Illinois caused 2 fumbles, and they picked it off one time, and they had the ball for 26 minutes. They did what they needed to do to win the football game. Illinois has always had a pretty good defense. They've been known for that. And guess what? They proved it. They look good. Illinois looked good against Michigan. Nobody should have thought Michigan's going to be this top dog this year. Now, Michigan next year, maybe the year after, yeah, they're going to be back. Michigan will be back. But you're coming off a national championship season where you just lost all your guys plus your head coach. That's a big deal. Illinois, trying to build a program here. Offensively, have gotten better. They've been better this year than they've been in previous years. Good win for them to get over Michigan. Now, the thriller game of the day, right? And this is back-to-back weeks we've had this type of thriller game. Texas and Georgia. Georgia, let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, about Georgia. I know everybody's got this love for Oregon, right? And people got Oregon number 1 team in the country. Oregon's offense has been good. Their defense doesn't really impress me all that much. I know they got the stops when they needed to against Ohio State. I got it. But it's not like they didn't give up 400 yards of offense to Ohio State. Ohio State had 400 yards of offense against them. Now, Ohio State's defense didn't play very stellar either. They gave up a lot of yards too. They gave up almost the same amount of yards. But Oregon's offense is great, and we all knew that. But when I look at the schedules between the two of them, when you look at Oregon's schedule, let's go right through it. And this is no disrespect to Oregon, but Oregon's played Idaho. They played Boise State and they struggled. They played Oregon State and took care of them. They took care of UCLA. They took care of Michigan State. They beat Ohio State in a close one, and they ran over Purdue. And they play Illinois this week. Now, let's go to Georgia's schedule real quick, and let's just talk about Georgia's schedule. Georgia has played Clemson. Clemson was number 14 in the country starting off on the year. Then they played Tennessee Tech, which is nobody. They struggled against Kentucky. They lost to Alabama. They played Auburn, Mississippi State in a close one, and Texas. You tell me which one who's had the harder schedule thus far. And not only that, they didn't beat Texas barely. They beat Texas by 15 points. They didn't just beat Texas. They didn't Ohio State-Oregon game. It wasn't 32-31. It was 30-15. Kirby Smart, he shut down Texas. Carson Beck didn't play an awesome game, but Georgia did enough in the football game for them to get that lead. Texas had 230 yards of passing, right, to Georgia's 175. But Georgia had 108 yards rushing. ETN had a great game. Texas had 29 yards rushing. Georgia had 78 yards worth of penalties to Texas's 41. Georgia had 3 picks. Now, Quinn Ewers threw a pick. They also fumbled the ball 3 times. So it wasn't like a complete stellar game, right? But Georgia got it done when it mattered. Georgia held them to less points. Georgia, to me, outplayed Texas. Georgia's had the better schedule than Oregon. I think Georgia's probably the best team in the country. I really do. I know. I would say I will completely agree with you if you tell me that Dillon Gabriel's 10 times what Carson Beck is. He is. Dillon Gabriel's elite. I get that. I'm not doubting anything about Oregon's offense. But Oregon's schedule is not, and that's not Oregon's fault. I get that. That's not Oregon's problem. But Georgia has played the harder opponents. The opponents that Georgia has played is better than what Oregon has played. It's just a fact, ladies and gentlemen. Alabama was number 4 at the time when they played them. And you're going to say, Alabama's lost a couple games. Yeah, but Alabama was the number 4 team in the country when they played them. Texas is the number 1 team in the country when they played them. Georgia almost beat Alabama. Georgia beat Texas when they needed to the most. To me, Georgia is the best team I think they're the best team in the country. I'd say Oregon's number 2. I'd definitely say, and I'm going to go over my top 5 here in just a few minutes, but we got to get to, the rest of the week and then get into this week, and then we'll get to the top, then I'll get to a top 5 list of the week. But that was the last electric game of week 8, sorry. Time to talk about our favorite topic of the day. Let's go Mountaineers. Let's go. Man, you talk about it worse. This game was worse than the Iowa State game. It was rough. I tell you that much. Now, Kansas State struggled against the pass versus Colorado. What do? Not pass the ball. And listen, there's no disrespect to Kansas State. Kansas State is one of the best teams in the Big 12, along with Iowa State, right? But West Virginia only had 143 yards passing to Kansas State's 298. Kansas State ran the ball 116 yards to West Virginia's 152. Kansas State also had 96 yards worth of penalties to West Virginia's 39. Garrett Green threw 2 interceptions. That didn't help anybody. And West Virginia had the ball more than Kansas State. Now, oh, Lordy. Okay, we outran them. We had the ball more than they did. They had more penalties than we did. We managed to throw 2 picks. That never helps. Interceptions never help. We gave up a lot. Our secondary gave up way too many yards on the pass and the run. Running, I can get along. Running, I mean, listen, that can come throughout a game. People getting wore out. Passing, I'm not shocked. Our secondary's been bad all year. Last week, I talked about it was time for Neal Brown to go. And ladies and gentlemen, it is. I'm going to continue on this train. I'll continue it this far. I really don't think we should have fired Dana Holgorsen for Neal Brown. I'll go back to it. I know it's over. I'll go back to it. Now, Dana Holgorsen was not perfect at West Virginia. That's as far to say Dana Holgorsen was not perfect at West Virginia. However, you know what Dana Holgorsen did do? Competed. He was ranked every single year except for one. Neal Brown's never been ranked in his 6-year tenure. West Virginia has only had 9 10-win seasons. Dana Holgorsen has 2 of them. Neal Brown doesn't have any. Now, you could say, well, their top 25 records are close, right? They're about the same. Okay. Dana Holgorsen only has 6 top 25 record. The top 6 wins against top 25, and that's been at West Virginia. And that was, 2018 stats, right? I haven't even looked at his Houston wins. To Neal Brown's 3 out of 17 all time. And Neal Brown has won all 3 of those at Troy. Not even one at West Virginia. Look, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not saying Neal Brown can't coach. I think he's an ACC level coach. I think he's ACC tier. I don't think he's Big 12. I don't think it fits. He's got a huge run game. They got a great run game. They are the best when they can run the football. And you just cannot run the football in the Big 12. It doesn't work. You can run it, but you can't run it to win every single game. You've got to be able to have air raid in this offense. So we have no air raid, and it's miserable for people like us to watch. It's miserable for everybody to watch. West Virginia, the fans aren't having a good time. The atmosphere is not very good. There's no support. I'm not saying that Dana Holgorsen was perfect, but he was better than this. It was we could at least compete in football games, and we competed in the Big 12, no doubt. We competed in the Big 12 better than any position we have been with Neal Brown. It's time for this to end. It's time for this chaos to finally come to an end. Neal Brown has got to go at the end of the season, and I'm telling you, it's got to happen. If it doesn't, West Virginia won't get any better, and we're going to have to keep having the same results every single year. So that was week 8. Now we're going into week 9, and so We will talk about the games, but I do want to highlight my top. I will highlight my top 5 teams in college football. Now, my top 5 teams are a little weird. It's a little different from everybody else, so I'll be able to put them on the screen here, and I'll put 5 and then the team, and then 4 and then the team. So my top 5 teams. Number 1 team is Georgia. Georgia's the number 1 team. They've had the harder schedule, tougher opponents. I think they're the best team in the country, through and through. I don't care if they have 1 loss. Don't care. There's other teams that don't have any losses either, and they're not in the top 5. So Georgia's my number 1 team. Following in at number 2 would be Oregon. Oregon's offense is electric. They beat my number 3 team right now. They keep proving themselves every single week. They'll get better. And the more opponents and tougher opponents they play, the higher rank I'll give them. My number 3 team would be Ohio State. Don't care if they have a 1 loss. I'm not putting Penn State over them. Penn State hasn't played the opponents that Ohio State. They haven't played the opponent like Ohio State has. There isn't anybody on that roster that's better than Oregon, and Ohio State's played them. So Penn State has not played anybody like that yet. Now Penn State will have a chance to prove themselves against Ohio State coming up, but right now Ohio State's my number 3 team. My number 4 team would be Texas. As they lost to, I think, the best team in the country in Georgia. Texas, bunch of dogs. I think they can beat Penn State and anybody else. And Texas is only going at number 4 because they lost to Georgia. And at number 5, I have a tough time, but I will give them the love and benefit of the doubt because they have played a ranked team and this other team hasn't. Is Penn State. Now, I personally like Miami better. I like Cam Ward better than Drew Allar. I think Cam Ward has had a great season. I love watching him. But Penn State's defense has been better than Miami's. But that's tough for me. I almost want to put Miami in my top 5. However, that is my top 5. Georgia, Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State. My top 5 teams. Top 5 teams in the country. The best 5 teams, I think. And I think that's a no doubter right there. The only team I have, like I said, that I could arguably, that for me, put into the top 5, be Miami. The way they played their opponents. But their defense is not as good as Penn State, and I get it. So, that's why I'll leave them out. But the other one's non-negotiable. They're non-negotiable for me. Those teams are at least the top 4. So, that is my top 5 teams of right now after week 8. And now we're going into week 9. And we got an interesting week. It's not been the most exciting like the other weeks, but we do have some really good football games. We do have some really good opponents. So let's get it started out with, you have Syracuse and Pitt, which will be on Thursday night, which is going to be a fun football game. Syracuse, Kyle McCord, they're 5-1. Pitt's been undefeated this year. They're looking good. Hate that because West Virginia's their rival. I hate it. I absolutely hate that, but great for Pitt. Good job. Kyle McCord has had a 10 times better than year than he did at Ohio State. He's thrown 2,100 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Pitt's quarterback Holstein has thrown 1,600 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Syracuse has aired it out. Syracuse has played well. This is an ACC level matchup. This is going to be Syracuse's toughest opponent right here. So we're going to see what they can produce against Pitt. Pitt, I'll tell you what. They've played some good teams. West Virginia was probably their hardest opponent as of this point. But Pitt, this is going to be an interesting game. You want a good, interesting college starter. This is going to be one of them right here. Pitt and Syracuse at 7:30 on ESPN on Thursday. Then Friday you have Boise State and UNLV. Ashton Jeanty, the Heisman runner, looking great. I think he's going to slaughter UNLV. And UNLV lost that quarterback this year. I thought this was the only team that probably could have stood in their way. Give me Boise State to run over UNLV. Now, I didn't talk about Indiana and Nebraska last week. I forgot to mention that game. I knew it was a big-time game. Cignetti and Indiana. Indiana's got a football team. They look great. Hope we get to see more of them against some top opponents. But this week, we have Ohio State and Nebraska. Now, Nebraska got slaughtered by Indiana. And ladies and gentlemen, I hate to say it, I like Dylan Raiola, I like Matt Rule. They're getting slaughtered against Ohio State. I don't see Ohio State losing to anybody else right now, at least in the Big Ten. They're going to slaughter everybody else. Give me Ohio State to run over Nebraska. Will Howard needs to bounce back. If they're coming off a bye week, they're more rested than Nebraska. Give me Ohio State over Nebraska. Notre Dame and Navy. Navy is 6-0. They're number 24 in the country. They look impressive. Navy, they've been, of course, obviously heavy run football team. Always been a heavy run football team. However, they have passed the ball better this year. Horvath has 888 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So that's not so bad. He's also ran the ball 621 yards and had 10 touchdowns. So the quarterback's doing it all for Navy. Is going up against Riley Leonard and Notre Dame. I expect Notre Dame to win this football game. They got to win this football game. Notre Dame can't afford to lose any more football games. So give me Notre Dame over Navy in our first big ranked matchup of the day. Now, Indiana, number 13 in the country. Yeah, Indiana, number 13, is going to play Washington. They're going to slaughter Washington. Washington lost so many people last year, including their head coach, by the way. So it's not looking great over there at Washington. Washington plays Indiana. Indiana's going to slaughter Washington to move on to 8-0. That'll be another Big Ten game. Oregon and Illinois. So Oregon's getting their big time matchup. Oregon's getting another big time matchup here. Illinois coming off a big time win for them against Michigan. Yeah, they're going to lose to Oregon. I know Illinois has a good defense, but give me Dylan Gabriel. Give me Oregon. Their offense is elite, unstoppable. Their defense, like I said, not impressed with their defense. Doesn't excite me to watch them, but Oregon is better than Illinois, so you got to give me Oregon. UCF and BYU. BYU, we already talked about it. I think BYU will beat UCF. UCF's been struggling. Thought this wouldn't be a struggle year for them, but they are. Give me BYU. Alabama, Missouri. Oh, man, jumping into this game, right? Alabama, Missouri. I'm going with Bama. I like Missouri. I like Brady Cook. I'm rolling Bama. Roll Tide, roll forever. So I'm rolling with Bama. Alabama will beat Missouri. Home game. Alabama's got to bounce back. Had a last couple 3 weeks that have been struggling. You got to give me Alabama over Missouri. Texas and Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's ranked. I'll be honest with you. I don't remember the last time Vanderbilt's ranked. But this will be that. This will be, you know what the best part is? Vanderbilt ranked at 25, and this will be it for them because Texas is going to beat the crap out of them this week. Give me Texas over Vanderbilt quickly. It's going to be a slaughterhouse. LSU, Texas A&M. Look, LSU's a weird football team to me. They are a very strange football team to me. I think there's a lot of games that LSU probably should have lost. They probably should have lost to Ole Miss, right? LSU should have lost to South Carolina. I mean, LSU, there's been some games they should have lost this year, and they've won. So LSU, Texas A&M. Texas A&M has gotten better as long as the season's gone on. Their quarterback has gotten better. But LSU, more experience, better offense, will end up beating Texas A&M pretty easily. Give me LSU over Texas A&M. And then, ladies and gentlemen, the best matchup of the week, in my opinion. But, my opinion is not as valid for that. No, this is going to be terrible. West Virginia and Arizona face off for the first time ever, right? It's going to be a fun, interesting game. Both are 3-4. West Virginia's going to Arizona. Arizona, high-powered offense, has actually struggled. Fafita has struggled this year. He's not been throwing all that. He's thrown 9 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. It's not been all that impressive. But however, Garrett Green's been about the same length here, 9 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. But Garrett Green's also ran 421 yards this year. Look, this is going to be whoever decides they're going to coach better that day. Is Arizona or is it going to be West Virginia? I think Neil Brown has to win this game. I can't imagine us going 3-5 and how that's going to work out for him. I just can't. I can't do it. So I'm going with the West Virginia Mountaineers to beat Arizona in the first time matchup. Going to be a fun matchup. I'm tired of this. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I am sick of the 7:30 games. Can we please get away from the 7 games? Can we just put West Virginia on at noon and so I can be done with it at 3 and then, be happy to watch the other games instead? I got to watch, West Virginia in some late evening hour that nobody wants to watch them on TV because they've been terrible all year. Just saying, rather watch the better teams or put the better teams on earlier in the day. I'm upset that I had to go, I watched the West Virginia Kansas State game last week and missed a lot of the Texas-Georgia game. Upset about that. Story for another day, but however, West Virginia will beat Arizona this week. We will get a W. We will go 4-4. Let's get on to it, man. Let's go, West Virginia Mountaineers. Let's go. So, that is our college football segments of the week. Now, I'm debating whether, right, to, should we continue on this episode where it's a long episode, right? Where we do NFL, where we talk about NFL, or should we do like 30 minutes, college football, and then do NFL and then baseball, right, afterward. But, I've been thinking about that all episode about how I'm going to handle the situation, or, how you guys want me to break this up, or you want me to do 2 episodes, because I know some of you guys really prioritize, college football, and that's, the big time matter. You don't care about pros, you don't care about pro sports. I get that. But you also can listen to, like, where I would talk about pro sports over college football. But I think for this week only, and yes, there will be an episode about the Yankees. We will talk about NFL and the Yankees. But this episode specifically, I want to talk about college football. College football is important. It's been an insane type season right now. I can't believe we're 9 weeks in. We're going into week 9. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Feeling like we just came off, coming off week 3 against Pitt. So really, it's been a thriller college football season. It's been interesting to say the least. There's been a lot of teams that are surprising, and a lot of teams have been disappointing. But I'll tell you, this team that everybody should be surprised about and should be happy about is Colorado. Colorado, they're 5-2 right now. Going to play Cincinnati this week. Colorado walked into the Big 12. People didn't even predict them to win 4 games. Have already won 5. And they're competing in the Big 12. They're doing more than West Virginia is. The West Virginia's been in this conference since 2011. So they're doing more than we are at the moment. And Deion Sanders, Shadir Sanders, Travis Hunter, listen, they could have beaten Kansas State. They could be 6-2 right now easily. They've been really good throughout the Big 12. So Colorado has been a surprising team. Miami, with how high they have been in this year and how much success they have drawn, has been surprising. Our disappointing teams, Florida State keeps getting disappointing every single week. Florida State handed Duke their first time win against them in ever. Duke's never beaten Florida State ever in football. And they beat them. So, a lot of interesting ups and downs. But college football episode, wanted to get into it, want to talk about college football. I know the pros are for some other people. If you want to see the pros episode, or if you guys think I should just add it all in as one full-time episode, let me know. I'd do that. I could do it. We could talk about everything in one full episode. But for my college football fans, I try to at least give some type of value to you guys where you guys can just listen about college football. I don't want to listen to pros in the World Series. I don't care about any of that, right? That's why I try to bring the value to, I release a NFL episode and I release a college football episode. So at least everybody gets kind of what they're looking for, right? And rather spend more time on this episode than this episode. So, ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoy college football. Remember, top 5 teams: Georgia, Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State. Those are my top 5 teams. Not changing my opinion on that. Except if you want to say that Penn State is actually at 6 and Miami's at 5, then, well, I might agree with you. I might agree with you, Miami fans. I think you should be at 5. But it's a story for another day. Long conversation we got to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoy week 9. And we will be back next week for college football to jump into week 10. And actually, probably going to be back earlier in the week to cover it. So, hope you all enjoy college football this week. And I'll see y'all later.